Just to show you what I'm looking at here, I've got several piles in sections that I understand that I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about these tonight as part of the talk. It's not the entire talk, but these are some of the things we'll be discussing. Good evening. In 2023, I revived a project that had started in 2017 as a solo side recording project called This Dark Shroud, and I asked the question in 2023 on the final of 3 albums I did that year for the project under that name. What is This Dark Shroud anyway? And that was a very long spoken word piece, which I ramble kind of like I'm doing now or plan to do, but hopefully in an interesting way, with a kind of ambient noise in the background, talking about the inception, a little bit of the project and what it is and what it's not. And I think that question, what is this Dark Shroud anyway, is one that has recurred again and again. Now, I thought to do a talk on the topic, how this Dark Shroud saved my life. Now, how could a side project save anyone's life? And if anyone watches the channel, knows my music, you could see that although I've done several This Dark Shroud albums, videos, live performances under that name and so on, the bulk of my work has been released as Marc Lowe, not as This Dark Shroud. So what's so significant about this thing anyway? And also, what makes it, why should anyone watching care to listen to the talk? It's not, it's not intended to be just a self-centered talk about my side project and why anyone should listen to it. It's actually not even about why should anyone listen to it per se, because that's taste. Just like why should anyone listen to anything, any artist. So that's not really what this is about. This is more about a much broader topic. And what is that broader topic? Well, the answer lies in the question, and the answer is a question, and it should be, because why do we listen to anything? Why do we like anything? Why do we dislike anything? Why do we identify or not identify with anything? This is going to get into deeper philosophical issues around these things and go back to the title of the talk. Now, why am I wearing dark sunglasses and a dark outfit like this? When I started This Dark Shroud in 2017, and actually in 2018 when I ended up performing for the first time as This Dark Shroud solo, this was my concept for the way that I would look, is that I would wear dark sunglasses and a dark outfit. Now, I often dressed in black, and at the time in Fukuoka performing solo, if I was doing especially electronic style rather than just acoustic vocal style, hikigatari in Japanese, which hiki is a hiku, which is the verb for to play guitar or something, an instrument, and gatari is from kataru, katari, to speak or to sing, basically. So singing and playing guitar. This Dark Shroud, when I first started, although I did actually use the acoustic, it was mainly, I used the acoustic with backing electronic tracks. And for that show, I also, mainly played the keyboard, sang, and did some drumming as well. But anyway, rather than getting into that as much, I decided to dress this way because this is the look of, for me, This Dark Shroud live. I want to give a little background, just a little bit, on how it started, how it evolved, and what it means, what it has meant, what it has come to mean, why I'm giving this talk. And also, I'm going to talk, of course, about music, but also, as I say, getting into sort of deeper, sort of philosophical issues around this, and when I say it saved my life, or that it continues to save my life, I mean this in a broader sense also of music and creativity. But why this Dark Shroud? And not just why music saved my life, why creativity has saved my life. Well, actually, I could argue that just as well. But what makes this Dark Shroud special? Why do I keep coming back to it? What is its power for me? What is so powerful about recording and or performing, or both, releasing music or video or doing live performances under the name This Dark Shroud rather than Marc Lowe? And sometimes they're interchangeable. I'll get into all that. But let me just say this also. One reason I'm not thinking about this project, several reasons. Okay, firstly, I'm performing live in early April for the first time in, now it's going to be, how long? I forget. I think I performed at the end of January, sometime in January, the end of January. It was the last time I performed. I have no performances, had no performances, if memory serves, in February, unless I performed at the beginning of February. I'm trying to remember now. But anyway, I did not perform on my birthday this year, as I normally do. I've done that several years in a row since 2020 COVID, with skipping, I guess, 2021, and then 2022, 2023, 2024, I performed live each year on February 26th, my birthday. This year I did not, skipped over that. March, no live performances whatsoever, although now I'm actually not teaching classes regularly because university is on break until April, when the university school year begins in April in Japan. But I have a performance scheduled in early April, and actually I'm performing as this Dark Shroud. I was originally just going to do Marc Lowe, and I was going to do sort of my usual for these days improv styles, you know, just bring this, that instrument, and maybe even not even using backing because I don't have video at this live house, and just see how it goes. When I do this Dark Shroud, I usually have been using video projections whenever possible. I was asked to do a show, and I was asked by the live house, the person who booked it, to also do vocals, to sing something. So I decided to do this Dark Shroud. Now, this leads into something bigger and more important why I'm thinking about this Dark Shroud. So I made that decision, or, you know, according to this live house, the last time I performed there was 2020, which was during COVID. This is 4 or 5 years ago. So it'll be the first time in a while. I actually did use video the first time I performed there. I had two performances. The second time I just played acoustic guitar and piano and sang. But it's I had to bring the projector and do all that, and I decided just not to do that this time. But I'm going to use backing tracks. And now getting to the second reason. Whenever I do live shows, which is not that often these days, it gets me thinking about, right, how to prepare, what to do, what kind of music I'll do, what kind of prep I need to do. Often it's video. This time I'm not doing the video, but today, yesterday, today, I was really thinking about it. Finished my taxes in Japan, and I ended up creating a new track from studio sessions I had done last week and the week prior. Actually, last week I went into the studio again on the 15th, I think it was. No. The 12th of March. And I did a third extended long improv collage piece following what I released and put on YouTube as well. It was a video with all the nature setting called Mugen, Sekai Usekai, and it's just a Japanese title. It was 2 tracks, 25 minutes each, and I had video for those. And I did a third extended piece, which came out of a third session. But what I did was I decided to take bits from the third session and actually bits from some of the other sessions, and actually combine with other things, put some beats in, some electronic beats and some other things, noise elements. And I created a new track of 8 minutes, not 25 minutes, not 30, 40 minutes. And I called it, originally it was Tokyo Chaos Noise, then I changed it to Tokyo Noise Chaos. Now it's called just Tokyo Noise. And that was going to be the title then. I thought it's going to be this Dark Shroud. And then I started to think about other material I had done recently. I had the Matrix album, and I had the covers that I put on Liminality. And I combined them, some of the tracks from Matrix, Escape the Matrix, some of the tracks from Liminality, which are covers done in new ways, and this new track. And then today I actually went back and I, because again, preparing for the live show, I made backing tracks to use live. And when I do that, I almost always make edits or remix things or something changes. And so I actually kind of redid or remixed to some extent Outside, Bowie's Outside, my cover version of that, which now has Nothing to Be Desired at the beginning, another track I had done for a Marc Lowe album. Here's the first time I'll show a CD, right? David Bowie's Outside. Oops, huge influence on me. The case cracked, so I'm just showing the booklet here. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. David Bowie's Outside. It's very experimental, dark electronica. Leon Blanc here. And murder, it's about murder as art and all kinds of interesting things in the mid-90s. And the CD has the Minotaur or the Minotaur, if you speak British English, there with the hands. And I guess that's Leon on the back. He's on death row for the murder of Baby Grace Blue. There's a whole storyline behind it. But anyway, I combine those. I have a new version of Outside, and I also worked on my 9 Inch Nails cover, second CD I'll show, In This Twilight. This is, last year was the 30th anniversary of the Downward Spiral. This is actually, I just pulled all these CDs out. I had in boxes, dual disc version of the Downward Spiral. And the second disc has B-sides and things, I think. Is it? Or is this the version that has high resolution stereo surround playback? I have the stereo surround playback. There's another version with B-sides on it, but anyway, that's what that is. The Downward Spiral. And when I get into my TDS, this Dark Shroud, the Downward Spiral is TDS, this Dark Shroud is TDS. That's totally coincidental. But to get into, I know I jump around this way because that's how my brain works, but 9 Inch Nails, David Bowie Outside, which is a kind of electronic experimental album, moving into things like Skinny Puppy. This is The Process, which is the last album they did with Dwayne Gottle before he died. It was dedicated to his memory. You can see there. These artists very much not only influenced me and some of the music, obviously I've done as Marc Lowe, electronic music and things that have industrial edge to them, which a lot of my music as Marc Lowe does, but this Dark Shroud in particular was meant as homage to these kinds of artists. I also have a huge pile, not huge, but a substantial pile of Coil CDs, and these were really expensive to buy at the time. Some of these are online now, a lot of them, but not all of them are. This is the first part of Music to Play in the Dark. I recently covered Batwings from part 2 of this. I don't have the CD version, and that's now on the new This Dark Shroud album as well. This is the cover. It's hard to see, but I'll put it up when I edit the video. Coil, this is Persistence is All. It says a lot of these were limited edition. I don't have the original case for this one. I don't know where it went. This is the remote viewer. It's in these nice slip cases. This is the Ape of Naples. I covered Fire the Mind in 2018 as Marc Lowe. And this is Black Antlers. I have a number of these Coil CDs, which are now out of, many of them are out of print or very hard to find. And the Ambulance died in his arms. That's John Balance. And Christopherson, his partner in crime in the back. Both of them have passed on. It's rest in peace to both of them. This is also another crazy one where they're using that kind of modulars, and it's like all this weird stuff. And I've got a lot of fair amount of Coil here. These things influence this Dark Shroud. I have Nurse with Wound, another artist. I'll talk about some of these other artists as I go on in the talk. Let me go back to the origins of this Dark Shroud and then talk more about this project and bring it to the present, the revival up through this recent album and the live show coming, and the topic, what is this Dark Shroud and how has it saved my life, and how that connects to creativity, and how that connects also, another major theme, should have said this at the beginning, to a search, identity, and in Buddhist terms, mujo, in Japanese, emptiness, which many people misinterpret as nihilism, which it is not at all. And this gets into the philosophical part of the discussion, which I'll come back to. A lot of this is in that track, in which I asked the question, what is this Dark Shroud, which is on the third LP of the Triptych trilogy, Triptych from 2023. The signs were there. And this year, actually, this new album completes a second triptych or trilogy, though it started in 2024. And I'm going to talk about this too. I just sort of realized it. And there's some other things in between I'd like to talk about here. There's a history behind this. I've talked about some of these things before, but actually today, with the completion of this album and the realization that I've completed this, this has moved this Dark Shroud into a new place, a new phase. Before I start talking about the history and the new phase, I've been going through a lot of phases in my own life. Let me just get a little bit personal here, because this goes back to the whole thing about how this is important to me, but also how this might relate to you, the viewer, the listener, because we're all going through this now, aren't we? This life thing. Self-identity and the world is going through tremendous changes. It was on the 14th of this month, March, a worm moon, a red moon. I didn't see it because I was teaching at the hour that it was viewable in Tokyo, but when I left at 8 p.m. and started walking to the train station, I could see a very white, very bright full moon. So going through changes. March has not been an easy month for me, not particularly, but then again, I could say that since 2020, this goes back to my album Before and After COVID in a way, which I'm not going to talk about in detail now, which was published as Marc Lowe. But it is a footnote, because it does relate to this Dark Shroud. But in March of 2025, this month, apart from having to do taxes and those kinds of things, I've been not teaching really, because university, as I mentioned, is sort of on break. It's in between. I am teaching some nights privately, and I've been having a lot of ups and downs with health. The world is going through all kinds of hellish things, right? And I've had to distance myself from news, from SNS, and I've also found myself, as is frequently the case, but especially when I'm not teaching every day, alone most of the time. I'm in this apartment, I'm alone. I force myself, I go out, I take walks, I go to a coffee shop, use a computer at a coffee shop. I've been in the studio several times. I created these new long soundscape pieces where one is kind of almost from this Sekai Musekai. I think it sounds kind of psychedelic, and then at times it sounds a bit like Sanao. I use drop tuning and distortion on the Telecaster, which is behind me here, and experimented with all different things. I played the drums, etc. So in the studio, at the coffee shop, taking walks, teaching, just, like 3 nights a week kind of thing. And otherwise I've been alone, and I don't get many messages from people, and I'm not very social right now. And my health has had a lot of ups and downs. And I've had some, some low points. Not feeling well, depressed, but also thinking about what is this, like life, and what is it? And this Dark Shroud, again, let me get back to that, right? What does this Dark Shroud represent to me? And the question, what is it? What was it in 2023? What was it in 2017? What is it now? How does that change? And how has it changed me? And how might it change the listener open to that? And not just this Dark Shroud, perhaps listening to any music that is transformative, or doing any practice that's transformative. And for me, as part of the talk, I will talk about how the creative process behind it is transformative. And again, that's true of all my creative process, all my work. Today's topic is this Dark Shroud. So that's my March. And February was also a bit of a rough month. I found in recent months that the few people I had been in touch with, I had been messaging with on a semi-regular basis, have just, those relationships have ended abruptly, and not particularly in a good way. Nothing terrible, nothing like really terrible like my fallings out in the past with my band in 2016. Nothing like that, nothing like what happened in 2020 with my ex-girlfriend. Nothing like this. And perhaps it's because the people I'm speaking about are people I've never met in person, and all of it was online. But after this, it got me thinking about a lot of things, obviously. And again, all these, if you believe in this or not, whatever, the lunar changes, solar changes, all the weather patterns, these things apparently do affect us, the tides, the moon, etc. Maybe it's some of that, maybe it's part of the reason with my health. Realizations about things. And up until very, very recently, I've been having a very hard time. Not that I'm not now, I still am, but so this is very recent, but yesterday I was thinking about the live show and I was working on these things, and I realized that I had a track that could be this Dark Shroud, and then I had the idea for the title and the cover, and then it just started coming together. Now let me go backwards in time and then forwards again to the present and sort of wrap up with all these things I want to mention. Very brief history of the early days, not only this Dark Shroud, but pre this Dark Shroud, like what was I doing in 2017 before I started it? And again, it's, just luckily in a way, I have these CDs, okay, that I found that really will help me illustrate this. I could put, like images on the screen, but it's cooler if I just show. This was the album I did with a producer, and it's Black Nail, and it was 4 tracks that he remixed. I had actually asked him for help with mastering, not with mixing, but he remixed and repackaged, and he had a logo for me. It was this kind of straight, it looks like I don't know if it's because black nail, if it's a nail, or if it's a stripe or what, because actually that's also, you can see he wanted me to put it on my forehead like this, and then you see next to it, he designed this cover. He took this photo. I paid him for it after the fact. And he remixed 4 songs. That didn't go so well. After 3 weeks I left. We did a live show together. I left, and if you want to know what happened there, you can read about it in my essay. I started doing my own things. My early covers were not so great. The dial is in the bathroom, Summer Sampler 2017, and it looks like this. And it's really shiny. if I show it that way. And I mean, like the CD literally was this. I don't remember. This may have been before or after this. I think it was after. I started just like, okay, I'll do my own CDs. And so it had, the booklet is just this, and the tracks look like this, and even the fonts are just kind of plain and boring. Next stage in that progression, actually, The Yellow Window is a song that I redid this year. I redid the vocals and I sort of tweaked the mix. I don't have a booklet for this anymore, but the CD with the eye, you see, the yellow window and the glasses. And there was I did a 2018 remix of this as a 1-year anniversary thing. And I did a new cover with my eye. And I use that as part of, actually, you can't see it, but again, I can show it on the screen with the eye. From that version, I kind of cut it and I used it as part of other cover art for other things this year. And I do that. I like to go back to the past and bring those things into the present, but using them in new ways. I'm going back and sort of tapping into history. I have to make a David Bowie reference. It's like Scary Monsters. You have Major Tom coming back, and then in Black Star, Major Tom comes back in video. And this kind of thing. So I kind of play with that too, in my own way. And I've always kind of done that for several years. Moving forward in 2018, I'm not going to go into all the details, but I had my own unit. At the end of 2017, I started this Dark Shroud. I don't have a cover from that period to show in my hand, but I can show the cover of the first album. I believe I have that in my computer somewhere. What it looked like, and it was just self-titled This Dark Shroud EP, and then it became This Dark Shroud LP. And the main sort of lead single, or the track that got the whole thing started, was called Undo. I also had Break, Push, Hate, Burn, Push, Break, right? Okay, the lyric from Black Nail, Hate, Burn, Push, Break. And that was a remix of Black Nail. It used like a loop of Hate, Burn, Push, Break, and these kind of electric guitar loops and stuff. That was kind of the sound I was going for. The early Dark Shroud, and I did several, like 6 albums or something crazy over like the 1 year of 2017. I was just like remixing things. I was publishing as Marc Lowe, and I was doing some other sort of experimental tracks using elements of other things. This Dark Shroud. In between, just because I have the CD, I worked with Sonny Yasuda, and I had a CD that looked like this. My cases started to get a little bit like more, start looking like this, and using these dark black plastic cases that just opened, and I would use gluing them in. The CD was just plain here, I guess. This was one I found that actually was This Dark Shroud from 2019. In 2019, This Dark Shroud became a duo with Joe Shotaro, bass player, played bass or guitar bass, using bass and guitar strings. All this stuff I've talked about in other talks. I don't really go into too much detail. After 2019, I moved to Tokyo, and I was doing work like these albums. This is Requital. I was using an app to make these weird covers. This is only 5 tracks, and they're longer and more experimental. It was getting more and more experimental. I had Tokyo Sounds. That looks like this. And tracks, this has what's on here: Decide Your Life, Who the Fuck, Running, Digging the Dirt mix with Sonny Yasuda's guitar, The Last Time version 2, Flesh and Bone, Stripped, and Tokyo 2020. These are longer, again, sort of noisy, using more noise elements. This too is getting into noise music more in 2019 and then 2020, and so on. This is a compilation I had made of things, a double CD. And one other CD I'll show from this earlier period. I had an album in 2018 called Digital Errors. This was Marc Lowe doing industrial music, and I had already started doing This Dark Shroud as a kind of industrial homage, electronica. But this was really Marc Lowe industrial, and this is crazy. I mean, it's like a 4 CD. What's on here? CD 1 is Digital Errors, the album, 9 tracks. CD 2 is The Hands, which are other. I should listen to this. There are other some other tracks, like The Hands was a B-side from that sort of period he wanted to leave was another one, Witch. And then I guess other remixes. And then CD3 was Contaminated, which is another CD I'd done. Crazy. And CD4 is the Cracked EP. Okay, so this is like 4 CDs of digital era things. I was doing all these things and remixing things, and all electronica. This is kind of related to this Dark Shroud sound, and I think some of those tracks I did alternate versions as this Dark Shroud. Okay, so 2019, at any rate, kind of went backwards with that and forwards, because that, I think I put that together in 2020 in Tokyo, this 4 CD version. But I had done with Solo 2017 and 2018, I completed like 6 albums by the end of that year. Joe and I started working together, and we became the duo version of this Dark Shroud. We did 3 main albums, and I just found this is not actually an album cover. They're up there, which I can't show now, but I can show later. This Dark Shroud Triptych, which was because we had 3 albums, and I made like a 2 CD collection like this. And actually, I planned to do, I put on YouTube already, the duo retrospective, which has some of that material. 2019, I moved to Tokyo. I showed some of those 2020 CDs already. I was doing a lot of experimental music, longer pieces, noise pieces, abstract pieces, instrumental pieces, or things with some vocal loops or some spoken bits. I think the music I'm doing now has sort of moved more in that direction, and going back to artists like Coil, Blacklight District, stuff that's very abstract, sort of experimental, and Nurse with Wound, which I didn't show before. This is more, some of it's kind of silly, but a lot of it's just really experimental, weird, noisy stuff. This is a Rupture. I only have 3, but these are some of the Nurse with Wound things, Stephen Stapleton. As Marc Lowe often did acoustic music, and I showed this is my Ibanez guitar from I was playing at the time. And Jeff Buckley was like a huge influence, for example, just because I have these CDs. Right? Okay, Jeff Buckley's not a huge influence on this Dark Shroud, but I've done Jeff Buckley covers as well. Actually, one of the Jeff Buckley covers I did was You and I did it with the kind of noise in the background. It's very abstract. So, that was kind of 2021 COVID period. This is Hope, which was the first of that period. These are Marc Lowe albums. Okay, so 2020, 2021, I just showed this is from 2021. The Jeff Buckley cover I mentioned was also on a 2021 album from that period. 2022, I don't have CDs from that period in front of me. Again, I just continue experimenting. I did more acoustic things. I did some noise pieces. I did Kali Yuga and 100 Seconds and and so on. I'm moving forward. 2023. 2023. I turned 50. I did my 50th birthday album, which was going back to acoustic songs from my Glass Gecko period, my band days, songs I had written for the acoustic. And then we had arranged as a band. I did acoustic versions, and I did some other things on that. Bowie tributes, etc., etc., etc. And then I did an album, or another triptych, called To Be Human, Humachinations, and there was a third one too. I don't even remember the title now. I call it the Human Trilogy. And most of the pieces on those were longer abstract pieces, not a whole lot of beats. And in 2023 especially, in 2022, 2023, less and less beats. I just didn't want to use the loop library because I was using a lot of looped drum beats for the electronica stuff, for this Dark Shroud, the first versions, including the version with Joe. I used a lot of those loops. And I wasn't going in the studio and playing live drums much. I did in 2022. I did some just abstract things, 21, 22. Soloing, abstract solos and things with electronic backing, those kinds of things I did. But so a lot of the music I had done did not have drum beats. They had pulsating things and noise patterns, and so there were things that you could call rhythm, or also my guitar playing became very rhythmical, tapping, neck tapping, body tapping. There's a lot of rhythm patterns and things, but there were no drum beats, and there was no electronica drums. or very little, I should say. Like the track To Be Human has a drum thing. It's like a very basic beat, but it's not a lot of beats. So in 2023, I started experimenting more with the Castellator pad and using the noise Castle noise maker, which has some clicks and pops and kind of does make beats in a way. But and I thought, I really want to do something with beats, and I talked about this in a separate talk. I created this whole beat track, and I started singing. After I laid down the beats, I did an improv vocal. Became it was going to be, again, the AI theme is actually in there. Something about AI is actually in the lyrics, but it became more about vanity. Take the vanity from your eyes, make some noise, smash the mirror. You don't need the image anymore. And that, I realized after listening to it with the beats and stuff, it was this Dark Shroud. So 2023, out of nowhere, I realized that I was reviving a solo version of the project I hadn't done since 2019 as a duo project. I started doing shows as this Dark Shroud, and I ended up making the first trilogy, Triptych. The first 2 albums were completed by the summer. The second one, 9, I did in the summer, where I redid Black Nail, I was in the bathroom, my own songs, things I had been performing as Marc Lowe. I also did some covers. Here's where I can show a few other CDs here. I actually did a cover, not 9 Inch Nails, but I did something from, not actually, this is Welcome Oblivion, How to Destroy Angels, the name of which this project, Trent Reznor and his wife, Maribel, I believe that's her name, Mondique, if I'm pronouncing that right, Mary Queen Mondique, sorry. This is a while, the CD reviews. That's what the CD looks like. It's pretty cool, huh? Originally they had released an EP, which actually I owned as a free download. He had released Trent Reznor at the time, and then I bought this one. I did a Drowning, which is the last track on that EP, and put it on 9. I also did an IMX track, also not on either of the CDs I'm holding in my hands. These are 2 IMX albums. I like this artist. I like his much of his work, especially, which I don't have the CD, ironically. I have it on streaming. But I did North Star, and originally I had done that in 2022 in an acoustic arrangement, very quiet acoustic arrangement. One version does have kind of electronic beats in the background at one point, and some kind of static noise, static ambient noise. But I wanted to do a beat-heavy version for this Dark Shroud, so I did that as well. So there's some covers there. I think there may have been 3 covers, I'm not remembering, on the 9 album. And I did, I also arranged a 9 Inch Nails Non-Entity, which was a B-side from the With Teeth period in 2020s, I think. And I still play that sometimes. I like that very much. I did an acoustic, I did a piano voice arrangement. And that I performed live as this Dark Shroud, is what I'm getting to, this summer. So I had those 2 albums completed, not the whole trilogy. I went back to Fukuoka, to Yutero, which is like my home lighthouse in Fukuoka, where I lived for 8 years before coming to Tokyo. And they asked if I want to do a one-man show, which means that I get the whole shebang to myself. So I said, that'd be great. I was doing a lot of video work. I showed this long video, which had some of the To Be Human, machinations, all that stuff. And also, but I booked it as this Dark Shroud, and so the performance was this Dark Shroud. And Joe asked my bassist to perform with me, and he did. I used video projections, and we did some of our classic songs together. We did The Fleshy Air, Black Nail, Bells in the Bathroom, and I performed some other things solo, including a long improv. And after I got back, like right after I got back, and I started working on the 3rd, which ended up being called The Signs Were There, and that became more like sort of, this is where the boundary between this Dark Shroud, the sound and the thing, and Marc Lowe started to blur more. I put Red Signals on there, which has some acoustic guitar, and there are spoken word bits where it's like they came from the talks I do, like these talks, and they were very philosophical bits that sound like something I would have only put on a Marc Lowe album, because I was using those spoken word things since at least 2021 or 2022 especially. I started doing that. Doing the talks, more and more talks, and then I would use those as backing for my tracks, which I still do to this day. The most recent album has bits of that. I'm going to talk about, especially 2024, 2025, the second trilogy after I finished talking about this final album of 23. And I also did the track I mentioned, which is asking the question, what is this Dark Shroud? I wanted to end the trilogy, the Triptych, which I felt was bringing that something to a close. It was 2023, it was going to be the last This Dark Shroud, at least for that year, and perhaps for a while. And I'll get into, actually, I only did one This Dark Shroud album last year, not three. I was going to do three, and it only ended up being one. I'm going to talk about that. But I've just completed the third now, so in 2025 here. So that piece is very long. It's over, I think it's over 10 minutes, where it's just spoken word, but it wasn't a talk. I had the mic and I didn't film myself even. I just recorded my voice and I used some ambient backing for it. It's just to close the series basically, and then I have an outro after that. There were some new songs on that. There were some redone songs like I had done for 9. I did Contamination again. I did Red Signals, which is an older song from 2017 originally. And some remixes of some other This Dark Shroud, and these kind of spoken segs, if you will. And it ended with that piece asking, what is This Dark Shroud? And I got into a lot of themes of life and death, Buddhist themes. What is the meaning of a shroud? And how do Japanese people, what do they think about this? Because there's no such concept. And I talked about death in Japan, burial in Japan, and we don't have enough land here, so everyone's cremated and put in an urn kind of thing, and there's a place for that. There's a butsudan where you pray and you ring the bell and so on, but there's no shroud and there's no coffins that go into the ground, I guess, unless you're, I don't know, the emperor. Not sure about that actually. Maybe the emperor's buried. Tutankhamun or something. I'm joking, it's not that. I don't think there may be a special burial for the emperor. I'm sure there is, but basically people are. There's just not enough land. Anyway, so life and death, and inevitably when I talk about life and death, I get into Buddhist themes of impermanence, themes of emptiness, and these things. And I said that Buddhism was going to connect, and that there was an empty core to This Dark Shroud, and to creativity, and to personal history, and to pleasure and pain, and to every single opposite that exists in the universe. And it goes back to my theme as an artist, whether it's This Dark Shroud or Marc Lowe or whatever the heck name I use, or don't use, because it's just names. And this is the same thing. It's yin, yo, yin, yang, light, dark, opposites, and duality, and also duality is actually non-duality, duality, two sides of the same coin. Vedanta, right? There's or Advaita, Shaivism, and I don't remember the terms in Hindi. Non-dualistic forms of thought. So there's all kinds of philosophies around this, but it's basically the philosophy beyond philosophy, the self beyond the self, dissolving the ego. And this now I'm going to get into my second series of This Dark Shroud albums, which I think in a way have become more about this. And in some ways they're more personal, ever more personal from 2023 onward. And from particularly that third album. Also, one thing I'll mention, when I did TDS, I'll call it TDS from now, in the 2017, 2018, the original idea was that I would use abstract covers and my face would never be on the album. I've only since put my face on one TDS Bonafide album. I've done, I did a B-sides thing and I did a live album. Those have, you know, like me performing live or in the studio. I use my photo on those. But the only album per se from this series that I put my face on was 9. And I did that because it's not just my face, there's also a background in these buildings that are sort of demolished, which was a photo I took in a particular neighborhood, and that was impermanence, because I passed by there and I knew it wouldn't be there forever, and actually I went back there several weeks later and it was gone. Or maybe it was more than several weeks, it may have been actually several months. It was gone, and I remembered that. It was impermanence for me, the symbol of that. So, but 9, you know, I redid my own songs, Marc Lowe songs, Black Nail, like I did, right, the EP. This was the Black Nail EP, right? The Dials in the Bathroom. This is the Dials in the Bathroom, you know, sampler, right, from 2017, these songs. So I decided to put my face with the impermanence, the crushed buildings, the background. I was thinking about this today, slight regret about it, because maybe I should have just left it abstract and not had my face on it, but at any rate, that's what that is. And so this second cycle, I've realized now, of albums, actually I wanted to do a second cycle last year, like I did in 2023. I thought, okay, 2023, that cycle closed with the signs are there, signs were there. And then the second cycle then would start with the Unbecoming. The Unbecoming, actually originally, because I had done 9 with my face on, I had this photo I took of myself leaning back in my bed or futon or whatever, and I took my photo and I kind of effectorized it. It was really a dark cover, and it was like just me leaning back, and it was going to be Unbecoming. And originally that was going to be, I was going to publish with that, but then I took myself out of it. And the reason I had put myself into it originally was because, like 9, it was, I felt it was a personal album, but in a different way. And this album actually, which starts the second cycle, certainly it relates to The Signs Were There. It gets more personal on the one end, it also gets more experimental on the one end, and less personal in the sense that there's less singing on it. More abstract pieces with spoken word bits, and some of the spoken word is clear and some of the spoken word is, you can't hear every word maybe, with abstract sort of, you know, beats, electronic beats and noise elements. And I play the guitar on it, the acoustic and with the slide, and just improvising and knocking the body, and a lot of, like I say, a lot of spoken words with elements of my life and my solitary life here in Tokyo. Tokyo Night Walk is literally just walking home one night in the summer and had the camera going and talking to myself because I was alone, and that became Tokyo Night Walk. I put effectors on, you know, static sounds and stuff and beats. But no, actually it doesn't have beats, I think. There's a version I added beats to later, before and after COVID. But there was that, and there was also a number of other things. I had done this long improv in my room, and I used that as part of the track, and so on and so on. It came from different places. Some came from improvs I had done in my room, in the studio. One was from Fukuoka the previous year when I went to do this Dark Shroud, and I did an improv in the studio and I liked it. It wasn't the live improv, and I took that and I used it as part of the backing for something. I had also done 2023 solo album that was important to me. It was my remake of, or my reflections on, my reinterpretation in some ways of Angel of Death from 2017. It ended up as Angels of Time. So I took some of the elements from there. I redid A Liar in a new mix, which comes at the end. I also did 9 Inch Nails cover from the Downward Spiral Reptile, which I'd done in 2018 in a more sort of straightforward way, and I did it in another way that reflected on my own history. It's got bits of Broken Reptile, because it's very Reptile, which is actually a Black Nail remix I had done, and it's got bits of Fragile Reptile, my song about the breakup of my band in 2016, interspersed with the vocal line and other drums and elements. It's pretty chaotic. So that's on there. There's the cover, and the bits from remixed or rearranged bits from Angels of Time, and the rest of it's just abstract and instrumental with a lot of spoken word bits. So that's the Unbecoming. The Unbecoming, so then that cover, to get back to, ended up just being black with text. That's it. So I decided not even an abstract cover. I took my image off. It's the Unbecoming. I didn't want to just have a black cover with no text. That would be too confusing. I could, but I think other artists, I'm sure, have done this. So I just used the text style that I use and the font that I use, and it says this Dark Shroud, the Unbecoming. And that became the cover. It's the most sort of basic stark cover I've ever done for any of this Dark Shroud covers. So it's like the opposite of none, because my face is certainly not on. And just to briefly go into detail, but briefly, I had two albums that were I had planned as the follow-up to that, and we're going to be working toward the trilogy of Triptych of 2023 for this Dark Shroud. The first was called City Scraper, and the first track I had done, City Scraper, which is a noisy piece with spoken word and chaotic beats, and some other things. I remixed, I think, Skeleton Bones I remixed for that, and from the first of the 3 LPs of 2023, that was an original track I had done for this Dark Shroud with beats and stuff, and I put a different spoken word ending on it to bring it up to date, this kind of thing. And the second half of that were improvs I had done in the studio, and I kept creating newer tracks thinking I want these to be like studio sounding tracks rather than live studio tracks. When I say in the studio, it's like live in the studio. So I kept making new things for it and updating it, and one by one taking off those tracks and putting them elsewhere. And by the time I got to the end of it, the last track I had done to update it, I had used to talk about before and after COVID, and that became the title. And then I realized this is a personal album I'm going to do. Before and after COVID is not this Dark Shroud. This Dark Shroud can be personal in some ways, like the Unbecoming had become more personal, but this was a Marc Lowe album that became before and after COVID. So the second This Dark Shroud album of 2023 was not to be. There was no second. Then I started working on a third, and that became In the Age of Kali, or Age of Kali, or something like that. And I did new version of Chaos, which actually come from a live version I had done with my classical guitar right here. I played on the classical guitar, and I combined it with some noise elements from another improv, and etc. And that was going to be the new Chaos version. And then I did some other things, and then I ended up doing the track The Tower, and that I felt was like Marc Lowe. So then I thought, well, this could be a Marc Lowe album called The Tower. So this became, and I have this CD I can show. The Tower actually had this cover originally. I actually like this cover, and it's kind of cool. This was it's abstract. I had gone out to look at the moon and stuff, and there were lights, and I got a blur with the camera, and I sort of doubled and flipped it and put the logo on it. It looks really cool. This was the original version of The Tower, which actually, or one of the versions, has different track listing from what I published as The Tower last year. And I had actually done it as a two-parter, and the second part I thought, okay, I'll do The Tower 1 as Marc Lowe, and The Tower 2 as this Dark Shroud. Now, I had forgotten, looking at this, I remember it says AKA, also known as 11. Originally, I even forget. This Dark Shroud 11, it was 11 tracks. Then I nicked it, and it became The Tower. Then I nicked it, and it was In the Age of Kali. Then I nicked it, and I thought, okay, I have all this stuff. I'm going to do The Tower 1, Marc Lowe, and The Tower 2, this Dark Shroud, The Tower, aka 11, and make it 11 tracks. And this cover, you can see on the back of the CD version, is what became the cover of my first This Dark Shroud album of 2025, Melting Point. Actually, this is the same exact photo I used, but I just re-entitled it. Melting Point uses the cover. So you can see my process here. But this actually was not released. I did these CDs. It's true. Maybe like 1 or 2 people in the world have this other than me. And actually I made a 2 CD set with the second CD as an abstract thing in the studio. It's actually, both of these have 2 CDs. See? And that's actually Melting Point cover. did not become this Dark Shroud. It never was. The Tower was published as a double album as Marc Lowe. 2023 ends, but before 2023 ends, I did the album Melting Point. I just showed the artwork. I don't have a CD version. That was the art I used, the lights moving. And Melting Point, 8 tracks I released at the beginning of 2025. Now Melting Point is, I think, even more instrumental than Unbecoming was. Melting Point is 8 tracks. It opens with a piano thing that refers back to what is this Dark Shroud, that piece. I also, when I went back to Utero last summer, 2024, performed a show as Marc Lowe, also at one man, and I did 2 sets, 2 long sets, and I had Joe also join me. But as part of the solo set, I used the backing, what is this Dark Shroud, and I combined it with one of the pieces from the Unbecoming. So I used the beats from one of the tracks from the Unbecoming with that spoken one, and I did an improv. And that live track I ended up putting on as part of Melting Point. So it opens with a reference to that very short one with a piano bit. That live track is on there, and it closes with another end roll, which that track was actually called End Roll, not What Is This Dark Shroud. And so that end roll piece is also part of the spoken was used with different backing. That also includes some new instrumental pieces and another improv from another live show I did. So that's an abstract, mostly instrumental album. I really sing, very, very minimal singing on the album. There's a bit of singing on some of the tracks in the background kind of thing, but it's mostly instrumental. It's very much like a soundtrack to something. Then we're getting up to the third and final part of what I feel is closing this trilogy. Who knows, I may do another This Dark Shroud this year, but I feel like this has brought the circle to a close. I never completed it last year. The Unbecoming was published. The other 2 became Marc Lowe albums. Second one I finished late 24, published at the beginning of this year, is Melting Point. And I just completed How to Escape by This Dark Shroud. That was originally How to Escape the Matrix. The cover I'll show. You can't see it there well. I'll show it when I edit. This looks like there's a hole in the sky that's torn, and you just kind of get out of the scene. But of course, it's nature. And one thing I realized too, almost all my This Dark Shroud covers, like the music, are dark. Like I wear dark clothes, I wear dark sunglasses. I didn't wear my red sunglasses because it's This Dark Shroud, tonight's talk. So I had thought about this, like, should I darken it or do like an X-ray image and make it look like nighttime and make the trees white? I could very easily have done that. That looks like a cover I'd done This Dark Shroud in 2018. I had something kind of like that. It was abstract. I didn't want to do that. This is the only cover, it's the last part of the trilogy, that is actually light. And This Dark Shroud is also Yin to Yo. It's yin and yang, it's light and dark. So if I can have dark covers, why can't I have a light cover? And the branches are dark. But actually the opening in the sky, it can be the sun, which is actually what the image comes from. But it looks like just there's a hole in the sky and it's torn open, or it could be the sun, but it's just white. There's no, it's just literally like paper white in the center of it. It's a void. It's not a black void like a black hole, it's a white void. And black and white, white and black, yin, yo, light, dark. Those are the two sides of the yin yang. It's white inside black, black inside white. You can't have one without the other. This Dark Shroud is also not just dark. It could be this white shroud or light shroud. My darkest Marc Lowe album, 2020's Untitled, ends with the song There Is a Light. It actually opens with it too. When I revised it, I put it in an intro. So the darkest album I ever made, it has There Is a Light. The album Hope I did in 2021 at the beginning of COVID, when I was just coming out of the Untitled album and a breakup and living alone and COVID and not meeting people and also having health issues and etc. It was called Hope, but it's a very, very dark album. It's really at times noisy and miserable and electronic and industrial, actually, but it's not this Dark Shroud. It's a very different form or style of industrial electronic noise music. But so there's always a light within the dark. So this album cover doesn't have my face on it. It's very light, like the Matrix had, right? Me wearing sunglasses and holding a mirror kind of thing. There's no picture of me. There's no face. It's nature and the hole in the sky. And actually, I realized later I put in this twilight on it, and in my version I changed the lyrics a bit. And what is it? One of the lyrics, the way that I sang it, was something like this. I don't remember what it was, but it's Reznor's original lyric was, the sky is filled with light. You feel it, all the black is really white if you believe it. I changed the lyrics and there was something about a hole in the sky or something. Just matched. And also, it just fits the theme, I feel. And it's how to escape, right? So, this Dark Shroud, How to Escape. And this is now 10 tracks. And it opens with How to Escape, which was How to Escape the Matrix originally. It has a new track, Tokyo Noise, which was originally Tokyo Chaos Noise, Tokyo Noise Chaos, Tokyo Noise, which partly comes with sessions, has some live drumming on it, guitar, Telecaster, improv. Actually, I used a drumstick to make sounds, but it's kind of buried in the mix a little bit in this version. You can hear it better on, I think, some of the improv versions on the Marc Lowe, on Sekai Musekai. Sekai Musekai, by the way, Sekai is world and Musekai is no world. That's it, the name of the title. Sekai Musekai, world, no world. So all these things. So this is where we are now. Let me close by talking about how this Dark Shroud saved my life. Well, creativity saved my life. Music has saved my life. Doing video work has saved my life. Doing these talks has saved my life. Having some grounding in spiritual practice has saved my life. I've had many, many health things, and I'm having now. But I feel like it's coming to a head somehow. I feel like I'm on the cusp of something, maybe. We'll see, but I do feel this way. And if so, maybe the cusp of something terrible and terrifying. The world seems to be on the cusp of something terrible and terrifying, but at the same time, we need fire to keep us warm. But fire can also destroy, and after something's destroyed, we talk about phoenix rising from the ashes, or, right? You burn something down, you build something new. Water, on the other hand, right, can be gentle and calming. Waterfall, the sound of water. We drink water. Our bodies are composed primarily of water and energy and things. But water can also, right, be violent and flooding and create disaster too. This is yin and yang, in yo, light, dark too, that there's both potentialities to all things, all potentials to all things. Wherever the cusp is, it could be something that breaks something open. And music and creativity has always been a way for me to break things open and to get out of any or all boxes that I've created for myself, or that society has created, or when I say society, I don't like to use terms like that, actually, because it becomes, that's part of the problem, is using terms like this, I think. Even like to say, you know, it's like it's us and them, right? It's like nations, religions, skin colors. nationalities, names, even names. This is mu, this is emptiness, is this too. It's that everything is just, from zero you have zeros and ones, right? Light and dark, yin and yang, 0, 1. There are infinite possibilities, and when you combine them in infinite ways, you get infinite different variations. We are all infinite variations on the same source, energy, I believe, or feel. Pleasure, pain, flip sides of those, life, death. Every coin has two sides. Well, things are more complicated than A side, B side. But they're all infinite variations of those things. And life is ever changing fluctuation. And so is death is part of that change too. It's part of that flow of life and death, and it's a cycle. And there's cycles and cycles and cycles. This Dark Shroud is a cycle. Starting in 2017 for me. Before that, there was a cycle of, when I started doing music in 2014, in 2013, beginning of 2014 with my band, Shattering Band, Man, and then cycle 2 years in 2016, my band, and then 2017, and working with the producer, and then starting my own thing, and then doing this Dark Shroud, and then, my contract ended. I came to Tokyo. That was the end of the cycle. End of this Dark Shroud. 2023, it started again. 2024, 25. This is now year number 3. I'm doing this Dark Shroud again. I don't know. 17, 18, 19 was 3 years. Maybe this is at the end of this cycle. Maybe it'll stop again. I don't know. I plan to do some more, but I have a show coming up next month. I plan to do that and to release this in some way. It's not, like I said, it's not just about this Dark Shroud, how it saved me, and it's not just about me and my music, but as a form of something I come back to. And I mentioned this earlier, if I perform as Marc Lowe, people say, oh, Marc's performing as himself, right? Or I sit there and I play my songs on acoustic, or I might do something wildly experimental, which I do, oh, Marc did his thing. That's Marc Lowe. That's what he does now. And that's obviously evolved and changed. And I go through cycles there, like where I want to play my songs again. I start, like 2023, I did the Glass Gecko era songs on acoustic and did an album of acoustic music mainly, which I hadn't done in a long time. That's a cycle. This year on my birthday, I actually released an album of acoustic songs. Some of the songs are on there, but they weren't recorded in Logic with the mic separation and stuff. They were actually just live in my room or live at a live place with people. A couple of the tracks come from live performances with people in the audience, and some were live in the studio. But those were acoustic songs. The album I released before that was Disinfo. I was angry about what was going on with all this stuff in the US, all the craziness, which is still going on, of course, and it's not going to be over for a while, but and with SNS and all the stuff. So everything's a cycle. This Dark Shroud is a cycle. This Dark Shroud is, as I say, because it's not Marc Lowe, it's not using my name, and mostly I don't use my face on the covers. There's a reason for that. That's why I regret slightly. But the 9 album is, again, that was kind of the bridge where I started getting more into both more personal and less personal, because the albums became more abstract, more instrumental, but there's a lot of spoken word, which kind of gives my story in a more personal way than before in this Dark Shroud. So in that sense, it's more personal, but less song-like or whatever. So 9 is more song-like, and so my face is there. But mainly, this Dark Shroud, this Dark Shroud gives me a way of distancing me from me. I can be Mu, I can empty myself out as Marc Lowe, and when I do creative work, I actually am emptying myself in a way. But it's also expressing myself, or the things on my mind, or the things in my life, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. Most of my music now is improvised. Most of my lyrics are improvised now. They have been for years. Just anything I do, not just this Dark Shroud. This Dark Shroud, actually, last year, I went back and redid a lot of my own songs. Now this year I've redone some of my own songs. I did the Yellow Window again, but I released those as Marc Lowe. I may do some as this Dark Shroud / Marc Lowe. That was another thing I was going to mention. the lines have blurred, and I do feel like this Dark Shroud is just a part of you know, my catalog. You know, it always was. I mean, it always was an alter ego, and I always did. There were always the Marc Lowe versions, the Dark Shroud versions, certain songs, and then certain things I only did, like Undo, Vanity in 2023. It's a Dark Shroud song. You know, but the Tower that I consider a Marc Lowe song. So Chaos can be either, depending on the version. So this kind of thing, Red Signals. There's a lot of crossover. Black Nail I've done is Marc Lowe, this Dark Shroud, and there are different arrangements. But this Dark Shroud has saved my life because it's allowed me to step outside myself in a way. Like, I wear the black, I put the sunglasses on. You know, it's like Bowie getting on stage as Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane. He didn't do Aladdin Sane. Well, he did, kind of. Or the Thin White Duke, which we're seeing the real Thin White Dukes, except they're not thin. They're only Caucasian fascists. But, you know, like this. And taking a different, they're not taking cocaine, they're taking something starting with a K instead of a C. And tripping out on that. It's the same thing. And so my Phantom mask is sitting here. I was going to use this one. Phantom, of course, a song I did in Chattering Man, and then I redid as Marc Lowe. And I did this on the 2023 birthday album in acoustic version. I redid it in 2023 for the Angels of Time album. I haven't actually done Phantom. A version of Phantom is this Dark Shroud, interesting. But I could. But you know, Marc Lowe is a Phantom. Marc Lowe is a name. Marc Lowe is a concept. Marc Lowe is a personality. This Dark Shroud is another name. It's another persona in a way. It's not really that different from Marc Lowe anymore. But then, you know, Marc Lowe, this Dark Shroud, these are just titles, they're just names. They flow and they change, just as we are flowing and changing, just as things are flowing and changing, just as society is flowing and changing, just as, right, the politics are changing, just as our concepts of things are changing and the technology changes and we change our mind and science revises things, and things Einstein said were true are now coming to light that maybe, like, I read this article, true or not, they froze light and made it into crystal. I have no idea whether it's true or not. The media says this. AI are changing our concept of what consciousness is or can be, or, you know, or who we are, what we are we, you know, is there man in a machine, machine in a man? All these things that the Japanese anime was exploring in the 80s and 90s, and things coming out in movies like The Matrix, right? You talk about The Matrix as a metaphor, Vanilla Sky, even Fight Club. I guess someone mentioned Fight Club. It's a little bit different, but you have different versions of kind of like what is reality and who are we and what's going on, and of course the whole alien thing, which I don't want to get into, and Bowie and aliens and all of that. So this Dark Shroud is another aspect of my music, of my soul, of me. And yeah, it's more electronic and experimental focused, but then Marc Lowe is experimental. Marc Lowe is electronic, right? Marc Lowe performs Red Signals, usually acoustically, but I performed Red Signals as this Dark Shroud acoustically, so, you know, of course there's no problem, they're all my songs, and it's the same guy sitting on stage, or is it? If I'm wearing, sometimes as Marc Lowe I dress kind of like this, and sometimes as this Dark Shroud I might do a variation, right? Nothing's set in stone. Everything is flowing and moving and changing. And I'll end with this, I guess. I read, just reading on SNS thing, I was just flipping through a bit. I've been doing much less SNS these days because it's kind of pointless and a waste of time, but I do get some interesting things occasionally. And it was just a bit about Heraclitus, and it makes me want to go back and sort of read about. But Heraclitus was basically a Buddhist or like a Hindu philosopher. You know, in Hindu, in Sanskrit, it's a shunyata, or shunya is a void or something, or emptiness or change, right? Mujo is a change in Japanese, or it's this ever-changingness. and at the center of that is void. And it's change, and nothing stays the same. Nothing is stagnant. Even our ideas of things change, and reality itself changes. Reality is changing right now. With AI, it's changing reality. Discoveries in medicine, discoveries in technology, that we can, we just got closest pictures of Mars ever, all these, or the moon, excuse me, and all this. So, Heraclitus said, you bozos who think, you're trying to like codify things and make laws of the universe, or it's a kind of science in a way, saying this is this and this is only this and it can only be this. He's saying, you guys don't get it. Everything is change. Change is the constant. That's it. And so our ideas about things change. Our rules, our laws, things change. Even gravity can change. Like over time, when the Earth, right, things shift, or a meteor comes in. Things are going to change. What we take for granted now, which is 100% truth, is maybe not going to be truth tomorrow, or next year, or 10 years, or 100 years. So Heraclitus got it, and he said, you guys, you're getting it all wrong, all you philosophers. And he wrote it down. He had a solitary life. He didn't have friends. He didn't have people like, respecting him, whatever. And his works were basically, kind of pushed aside. Like Tesla, the inventor, not the car, which is these days more than that. Those cars are being pushed aside or crushed or whatever. Or spray painted, which is maybe okay, considering what the person who has created them stands for. But, as is typical of these genius people like Tesla, who also made these incredible inventions that could have saved mankind, that the corporations didn't want, and they pushed his stuff out pushed it out. His Heraclitus his works were, according to what I read, and I have to read more about this actually because I don't know that much, but they basically come through Aristotle and people who came later, who've given us his ideas, and that Nietzsche said he was his favorite philosopher kind of thing, that a lot of Nietzsche's ideas came from Heraclitus. And even Nietzsche, right, he dies miserable and alone. You have Schopenhauer, always alone. And here I am, always alone. With few friends. I have music, creativity, several health problems that I've not found a solution for, but I feel some might be coming to a head somehow. I'm actually having some intense pain in some things. So now I have to see the doctor. Well, maybe this will prove to be something that can actually be traced to something. Maybe something can be done. And what are we, and who are we, and what is this body, and what is this dark shroud anyway? What is this dark shroud anyway? Where do we come from? Where do we go? What's in a name? What's in a shroud? What's in a drop of water? Or the sound my refrigerator's making, buzzing behind me now, or the moon in the sky tonight, the pain in my jaw, my tooth here, or what is any of this? Mean? It doesn't mean anything. Change and flux, and this dark shroud is a fluctuation. It's a cycle. So it's another thing I'm very thankful for. It's a cycle I'm thankful for. It's an entity that's beyond myself, because this dark shroud is Marc Lowe, but it's also not Marc Lowe at the same time. So it's my favorite project thing to do. But some things just don't feel like this dark shroud, and it's like I had before King Crimson CD here. I was going to show it, and then I put it aside. I thought, well, I'm not going to talk about King Crimson, but actually you see how these things go. Robert Fripp always says, when the spirit of the Crimson King comes, then I know the unit is King Crimson. They had in the 80s a unit called Discipline. And he said, maybe this is King Crimson after all. The first album, King Crimson Discipline, right? They went for 3 albums. Another triptych. There's something about these 3s, Bowie and Berlin. Outside was supposed to be a triptych, it never was. And then in the 2000s they reformed, etc. This Dark Shroud's like that, but who decides? Just me? There are no other members. It doesn't matter. It's not a synergy unless it's with Joe. And Joe, when we play together, it feels like this Dark Shroud. When I played Utah last summer, and it wasn't booked as this Dark Shroud, although many of the things I did were really experimental, electronic, whatever. But some of it was more ambient, and I played the acoustic too. But when Joe and I performed together, it kind of felt like that. So, what is this Dark Shroud anyway? It's moon. It's empty. And because it's empty, and this is the meaning of emptiness, is anything that's empty has infinite potential. You can then fill it with anything. If your cup is full and you pour some liquid in, it overflows. Or if it's already overflowing. And if it's empty, you can fill it with anything. And that's the 0 and the 1, the light and the dark, and all the things that are moving and changing. And that's a potential, right? That's why creativity and art, they're just infinite potential. That's why I'll never run out of things to do or to say. I don't think, unless I have some block for some reason, where I drop dead, which will happen one day. This Dark Shroud. Thanks for listening to my talk. And the new album is completed. Has the 3 covers. It has the Bowie Outside in a new arrangement. In this Twilight, in a slightly new arrangement. I tweaked the mix and also slightly arranged it a little differently. And the Batwings, the Coil, and also Tokyo Noise, new track that came out of the sessions, and some of the tracks from the Matrix LP in a different running order, in a very different sound and style. It feels like a totally new thing to me, as this Dark Shroud with a new cover and a new sound and a new concept. And thus completes the triptych. Last thing I will say, interesting thing about it, it's like you talk about yin and yang and yin, black inside the white, white inside the black, 0, 1, etc. Last year, started this Dark Shroud album, became a Marc Lowe album. Started another This Dark Shroud album, became another Marc Lowe album. This year, I started 2 Marc Lowe albums. One was covers, which was Vanity, and they became This Dark Shroud. It's the reverse pattern from twice last year. And I realized today this is the 3rd part of the 2nd triptych that actually took about a year and a half or somewhere around that amount of time to complete rather than a year. And Melting Point, which was published this year, was actually completed at the end of last year. So the first 2 actually were completed in 24, but interestingly, Melting Point was published in 25, and this will be published and was completed in 25. So it really does bridge 24 and 25 in an interesting way. That's all I'll say for now. Thank you very much. This Dark Shroud talk, kind of long, almost an hour and 22 minutes. All right. And I have retrospectives, don't I, that haven't published officially. I'm also maybe going to rethink those and publish them in a different form slightly. Thank you for listening. Those of you, anyone who's listened this far, bless your soul. And please listen to the album when I release it. Thank you very much. And hold on, hang in if you're in America. I know. But change your life. Kneel down, cast your strife, don't drown. Give them a sign, long loud. Hang up your pride. This story